Good morning. How are we doing? It is good to be with you all. My name is Ben. I think I know many of you. I'm from Grace Community Church, but now also at the Masters University. I serve over there as the Director of Student Activities. So coming from there, coming from GraceCom, and I'm excited here because we get to talk about the Word of God this week. Ready to do the Week on the Edge. I'll be here Monday through Thursday. We're going to do 4 sessions, and then Friday you're going to get a chance to break out and talk about it. But to kind of give an intro into what we're going to talk about this week, I want to define something for you. It's a term. It's called holding the line. Okay? Maybe you've heard of this term. If you're in political studies at all and you understand politics, you may say if you have a majority either in the House or Senate, maybe the Republicans or the Democrats will say you need to hold the line in your voting, right? So that we have just enough votes to secure the win, but everybody who's Democrat has to vote Democrat, or everybody who's Republican has to vote Republican. Everyone has to stay as they are. And that's one way to use the term, but there's another way to use the term, which I think is more what we're going to talk about this week, and it's in battle. Okay, in war, not as much today, where guns are a main weapon, but in hand-to-hand combat, they would line up and they would defend their area and with their army based on a strong front line. Okay, so they would have the people with shields and sometimes a second shield on top, one at the front, one on top, and they'd have archers behind, and they'd have other catapults, all kind of stuff behind that front line. But here's the key. If that front line, someone in the front line holding, and they go one by the other, if somebody would get broken down, would get injured, and they can't hold the line, what they were taught is that first person, if they're down and out, the second row then needs to come up and refill in the line. You have to hold the line. The reason being, as soon as they break through that initial line of defense, what then is exposed? The whole army. The shields are all up front, bottom level and top level, so they can't hit you coming in and they can't hit you with an arrow coming down. But as soon as you break through that line, you then are through, and you have all the archers, you don't really have any defense weapons, and you have all the people with their backs turned to you, and you can sabotage the whole defense strategy. So what they're taught to do is, if the first goes down, the second must fill in, and you must hold the line. It's a dangerous thing, and it's a difficult thing to do. You got people charging at you, they got spears and swords and all kinds of stuff, but it's something you must do, and it's only something you do if you have the foundational beliefs that it is a necessary thing to do. It's necessary because you can't expose the sides and rear of every other soldier. It's necessary because you understand that if this line is broken, the whole strategy fails. You understand that you all must work together. This week, we're also going to look at some foundational truths, some things that you must have to hold the line. And it's not holding the line in battle like it would be in war back then, but it is holding the line of if you want to be a Christian and live like a Christian, you have to have some foundational truths and beliefs that you hold yourself to. And the world is pressing in against you and telling you to break off and to retreat. You got to hold the line and stay there. And maybe you're thinking, man, these are issues like abortion or issues about sexuality and other things. And that's part of it. But you also need to hold the line on smaller things. Not smaller, but different things, not as public, but things that are just as important, such as respecting your parents, such as speaking with kindness, such as preferring friends over yourself, such as not showing favoritism. You want to live in a way that is radical for Christ, you need to understand these foundational truths that are going to help you get there. But you have to have them. So the theme this week we're going to build is holding the line, foundational truths which will help you live faithfully in a crazed world. Today we're going to look at the first one. We're going to talk about the image of God, how every person is made in the image of God. You have to understand that if you're going to live rightly. Tomorrow we're going to look at the second one, which is at the cross. Okay, we're going to look at what Christ accomplished and what that means for us. Wednesday and Thursday then, we're going to get a lot more practical. We're going to be in James for a lot of those days, and we're going to look at how these foundational beliefs inform the way you love and also inform the way you talk. Friday, you'll get a chance to break out and talk about it. So most of the week we're going to be in James, but today we're going to look at foundational truth number 1. Man is created in the image of God. So turn with me, Genesis 1, chapter 1, very front of your Bible. Genesis 1, chapter 1. Be in verses 26 through 28. This is the creation account. In the first part of Genesis 1, God is creating. In day 1, he creates the heavens and the earth, and he says, "Let there be light." And what was former darkness, there is now light. Day 2, he splits up the atmosphere and the firmament. Day 3, he creates dry ground and plants. Before that, it was all water. Day 4 is the sun, the moon, and the stars. Day 5, he creates birds and sea creatures. Day 6, he creates land animals. And then we get to Genesis 1, 26 through 28, where he creates something different. Read with me here. Verse 26, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, so that they will have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.' And God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that creeps on the earth.'" Earlier in the chapter, God created sea creatures. And he said these sea creatures are created according to their kind, meaning like other sea creatures. And the land animals are created according to their kind, meaning they're like other land animals. But now you get something totally different. In 26, he says, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." This isn't looking like all the other animals. This isn't looking like all the other sea creatures. He says humanity, you and I, have been created after the image of God. Something different than everything else. And foundationally, it's setting right from the beginning of the Bible that every person has inherent value that's different from everything else in creation. You as a human and I as a human have value that is different from everything you see around us. We're going to look through these verses. There's 3 different things I want to look at, phrases, and we're going to break them down. The first phrase, point number 1, is it says, "Man was created according to our likeness." According to our likeness. It means in some way we represent some of God's attributes as those made in his image. I had a photo back there. Can you throw that up on the screen? I texted that in. I want to see if you can guess who this is. Who do you think that is? Take a wild guess. That's my dad. That's Big Mike. Okay? Big Mike. So I think he's 54 right now. That was 3 years ago when I got to seminary. Until super recently, he's starting to gray a little bit more. We were always confused for brothers. And he's older than me, but I think you can tell there's something that resembles him in what I look like. And Dad and I are alike in a couple ways. Our height is similar. He's 6'4", I'm 6'5". I think our voices are similar. If you could hear him talk, he also has big hands, right? It's a weird thing that he has, and I also have big hands. It's weird, but if you want to compare, I guarantee you I have bigger hands than you. If not, I'll buy you lunch. If you want to compare, I will have bigger hands than you. If not, I'll buy you lunch. Other similarities is our build. Look at us. We're the same. And it also, when we were growing up, it drove us nuts. Mostly it drove him nuts because our personalities were the same. In some ways, we were perfectionists, kind of competing against each other. We were competitive and athletic. He used to be crazy competitive, and he saw the dangers of that. It was further along the line. And then now I'm a young guy, also competitive, not having any understanding in life that it's okay. You don't need to win everything. Life's going to be all right if you're not the best. And there's actually something sweet about encouraging others rather than trying to beat everyone else out. And he saw me doing the same things he was doing, but he's just 30 years down the line, and he wishes I would learn that lesson sooner. But Adam, in Luke 3, is also described as the Son of God. And it's because humans, the very first man, Adam, are created to resemble God in ways. Just like my dad and I look like each other, you and I were created to be like God in certain ways. We're after his likeness. We are like him in some ways. We are like him in our ability to be rational. As you think and use logic, it is like God to some degree. As you reason, as you exercise some level of wisdom and some level of justice, it is like God. You're created like him. In ways that animals and other created things can't, you also experience emotion. As you are able to express and experience love and joy and peace, those are things you have that are like God to some degree. We were also created like God in our morality. Now, this changed after the fall, but the very first person, Adam, was created good and he was created sinless. And he had a conscience that understood what was right and wrong. When he sinned, you even saw he had the conscience. He knew what was right and wrong, because when he sinned, what did he do? When God came looking, what did he do? He was hiding. So he was created inherently to know what is right and wrong. A dog, when you get a dog, you ever had a puppy? How many of you have a dog? If you have a puppy, does it know what is right and wrong? Does it know it shouldn't pee inside the house? Does it know that it's completely wrong to do that? It has no idea. You have to train it to understand what is right and wrong. And in some ways, you have to train a human being, but man was created with a conscience to know it is right and wrong to do certain things. It is wrong to kill someone, and man knows that inherently. Nobody has to teach man that, because we're created morally like God in a sense. Changed after the fall, but Adam understood this. And there's some attributes that we are like God and we resemble God, but in other ways we don't. God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. We are not. There's no way we resemble him in that way. He is at all places, at all times, fully present. Right? We can't even multitask right, where we give ourselves to two things, but he's fully present in all places, in all times. He's omniscient. He's omnipotent. Means he knows all things and he has power over all things. You and I have finite power. You and I have finite knowledge, and we're trying to grow in it just a little bit. He's not only the one who knows everything, he's created all things of learning, math, science. It's all created by him. It's part of his design for the earth. And you are not omnipresent, you're not omniscient, you're not omnipotent like he is, nor do you possess the full degree of any attribute God has. If God is love, he is love, it says. Perfectly love. In all ways love. You and I, when we express love, are we perfectly loving? Are we fully loving? I have a wife, Mrs. Hurd. You guys probably know her. She teaches 4th grade here. She is the best teacher at the school. She's beautiful. I love her, but even in my love for her, I don't love her perfectly. I wish I loved her perfectly. I aspire to love her perfectly, but I don't love her perfectly. It's impossible in my sinful state. God is love. In all these ways, we are like him, but we're not like him fully. He's perfectly loving. He's perfectly merciful. He's perfectly just. We can only imitate that. But as an image bearer, we are created, and part of our purpose, part of your purpose for being on the earth, is to reflect your Creator, to look like and be like your Creator, the one whose image we bear. And when you think and when you reason and when you love, you are reflecting your Creator and bringing glory to him. When you serve God at school, simply by exercising reason and thinking and logic and working hard in your schoolwork, you're reflecting your Creator and you are bringing honor to him. Just by doing schoolwork, you are able to do that. So, point number 1, We're according to his likeness. The second thing, point number 2, or observation number 2, is that we have dominion over fish, birds, cattle, the earth, and every creeping thing. Okay? You don't have to write all that, but we have dominion. We have dominion over everything. In verse 26 it says, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, so that he will have dominion, meaning he will rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over the cattle, over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. In verse 28 it then says, fill the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every creeping thing. We are to have dominion and subdue and cause the earth to be under us. We're to rule creation. We are to be above creation. We are to steward creation. And the reason is because we're made in God's image and we have a value that is above anything like an animal. You guys have seen the commercials, right? The commercials where it's a dog pound and there's a dog that needs adopted into a loving home. And it gives you a cute dog. It's not one of the ugly dogs. They put one of the cute dogs on camera and it comes on a commercial and it's got the flappy ears and the big eyes and it's looking sad. And it says something along the lines of, this dog needs a home. Will you reach out? It only takes this amount. It needs you to open up your home. And your heart might break for that animal. But as you feel a sympathy for animals as they're in a tough situation, you should feel a sympathy for humans all the more. As you realize an animal is a created thing, a temporary thing, and here's a person who has an eternal soul far above that of an animal. For every person is made in the image of God, and it's foundational for the way you think about people. If you want to think rightly about people, you must think of them in a totally different category than an animal. If an animal dies, an animal gets hit along the side of the road, it's sad, but it's not a catastrophe. If a human dies, if there's an abortion performed on a little child, that is a catastrophe. That's far different than an animal losing its life. It's far different than a fish losing its life. It's far different than a plant or a tree dying. Humans have an inherent value above everything else in the world. An old person is totally worthy of your respect and care. As someone's nearing the end of their life, why? Because they're made in the image of God. Someone who has some physical handicaps, right? Maybe don't have use of all their legs or something. They are totally worthy of your love and care because they're made in the image of God. Someone who's somewhat mentally disabled, might not think or act quite like you, is totally worthy of your love and care because they're made in the image of God. And in a dog-eat-dog world where you see people just fighting to get to the top, how can you be over other people? How can you make money? How can you get to the top, be thought of as cool? You must understand that every person is made in the image of God. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect the way you think about people. It's going to affect the way you speak about people. It's going to affect the way you love other people. If they're an image bearer, they're to be loved and they're to be served. And that is foundational to the way you see your friends, the way you see your classmates, the way you see your teachers, to the way you see your administrators, to the way you see your parents. You must see everyone, every human, as an image bearer and worthy of dignity and respect and value. In James 3, where we're going to spend most of our week, it says, talking about the mouth, with it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men. Why is this wrong? Because it says, who have been made in the likeness of God. Why is it wrong to talk bad about someone? Because they're an image bearer. Why is it wrong to slander someone behind their back? Because they're an image bearer. It all goes back to being made in the likeness of God. Observation number 3. Verse 27, it's God created male and female. Verse 27, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. In the next chapter, he goes on to describe how he took a rib from Adam's side and made Eve. This is also foundational to your worldview. There are two genders. There's only two. There's male and there's female. In the next chapter, it says marriage is between a man and a woman. They look different, they have different roles, but they have the same value, and they're both made in the image of God. The world's trying to tell you marriage looks like something it's not. God says, nope. Sexuality is sexuality is man and woman. There's no other genders. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Nothing else is marriage. Despite the state or the country telling you that something can be marriage, if it's not a man and it's not a woman, it's not a true marriage. It's foundational for worldview because God defines marriage, and He does it in Genesis 1 and 2. Male and female, understanding this is something you need to survive in this world. Those are the three observations I have. But there's a fourth thing that I want to talk to you about when it comes to being made in the image of God. Sometimes genetics are passed down. You saw my dad and I. We look alike. We're genetically similar. Something that God is God is eternal. And in a way that nobody else who's created is, no animal, no creeping thing, no fish is eternal, every human being made in the likeness and image of God is also eternal, meaning you are going to live forever, and everyone around you is going to live forever. But because of the fall, before there was the fall, there was no death. Now death is a reality. Physical death on the earth. You're going to live forever, but it's physical death on the earth. Because of the fall, there's now a break in the relationship of God. And being made in God's image is a good thing. It means you have value. Being made in the image of God does not mean you're right with God. You can have value above all creation. That also doesn't mean you are right with God. Doesn't mean you have a right relationship. In fact, in John it says, if you don't believe in the Son of God, the wrath of God abides on you. There is no love of God for you if you haven't trusted in Christ, but it's only the wrath of God. You're going to be around for eternity, but being made in the image of God does not mean your eternity is going to be in heaven. The image of God is the first foundational truth. The second foundational truth isn't found necessarily in Genesis 1. It's found at the cross. If you want to understand humanity, you need to understand the image of God. But the second foundational truth, which we're going to look at tomorrow, is the foundational truth of the cross. And as you understand the cross and what was accomplished there and all that was accomplished there, and that what Christ did is final and complete and there's nothing else, you will understand the second truth that is going to enable you to live faithfully in this world. So today, image of God. Everybody has value. Everybody is worthy of your respect. Tomorrow, what Christ has done at the cross. And Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to look at how we can speak in light of that and how we can love in light of that. Let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for each one of these students who are image bearers of you, who have been made like you in some way. You've given them minds to think, the ability to reason, the ability to feel and love. And they are precious to you. They are eternal souls, Lord. But we also know that being an image bearer doesn't mean they're right with you, Lord. And as we look at that tomorrow, Lord, we pray that you'd open hearts and minds to understand the gospel more clearly, to trust in the gospel for the first time for some, and to rest in what you have accomplished for those who already know you. We ask these things in your Son's name. Amen.